Welcome to Subject to Blackout. My name is Tímo, and this is a soccer special tonight. This is the midst of the first international games little break from the Premier League, and I thought I'd invite my fellow Premier League watching friends on to do a little bit of a soccer pod today, change it up on Subject to Blackout. I want to introduce each member of the team tonight. First, I will go with top right on my screen. We got Mike C. Mike is, of course, a Wolverhampton Wanderers fan. Has been for the last few seasons. A little bit of a late, recent addition to the Premier League fandom, but has bought in hard. As I'm looking at my screen again, just below him is Saud Arsenal. Orana joined up with Arsenal, I'd say 2-3 years ago. Loving everything about it since, as he shakes his head viciously. And then next to him, the man who helped get me into the Premier League, Booze Alonzo Langen. And Booze has been a Spurs fan for how long would you say, Brendan?
Like 2009.
Yeah, so it's been a minute. You were
fun Champions League run.
Yeah, you were one of the first of our friend group to really get into the Premier League, and I thank you for that.
Cheers,
guys. I invited you to this call tonight to talk about the latest transfer window because it's been contentious for some of our teams, but it's also been a pretty wild transfer window in and of itself. So before we get into that, let's maybe introduce ourselves and talk about how we got into our teams. Mike, let's start with you. How did you find Wolves?
Hello. They're America's team. No, I'm kidding. So I honestly had been following the Premier League mostly from playing quite a bit of FIFA and like watching the larger matches, and obviously from knowing you guys that were following it. And one year I had found some extra time in my hands. One like as the season was approaching, and read an article just talking about the various teams, kind of like comparing them to squads in America in various leagues. And Wolves had just finished their kind of like gangbuster rise through the championship. And so the combination of like fast goals and the history to it too, just kind of like checked all the boxes for like my sports fandom experience here. I felt like I'd be able to kind of like already had been living the experience of like smaller town, once proud franchise, et cetera, et cetera. So it worked out pretty nicely for me. And then the 7th place finish has kind of cemented it. I joke with my wife as she comes downstairs at 6:30 in the morning to find me like watching like a 1-0 Wolves fucking Watford thing in the middle of the dregs of March or whatever. She's like, they just had a rough first couple of years. Like, I'm not too proud to admit, like, I don't know if I would have like rode out a championship campaign. I would have just started anew. So my credibility is, low, but on the rise, but it's been great. I love it so far.
Yeah. And honestly, in case people don't know, I'm an Everton fan. Your situation is very similar to mine, is just kind of bought in at the right time to a team that really attracted your interest. But I was very concerned when you picked Wolves that I was trying to warn you, like, they might be a yo-yo team, one of those teams that goes in between the Premier League and the Championship. And I think you finished above Everton every single year. So what the fuck do I know?
It was the 7th place finishes, but it was also exactly. Well, and you warned me, and I remember it so clearly, and was so naive. I was like, well, surely that won't happen to my team, But they had pretty deep FA Cup run, and then they played through that traveled the former Soviet bloc to get into Europa, and then made it pretty far in Europa, man. Too. So the tournament success kind of like made up for some of the Wolves in the season, but they played so well against the top 6. It really felt like I just jumped on at a fun time.
Oh, that's fantastic. And Saud, I don't mean to touch a nerve here, but you're an Arsenal fan. How did you stumble upon this misery?
How did I stumble? Funny conversation I had with you and another member of this podcast.
I never told you to be an Arsenal fan.
That's true. I was never pressured. And it was, well, actually, it was a conversation in March a couple years ago. We had been talking about soccer for multiple years. I'd always kind of been curious ever since I knew you guys had been watching. Even back when, we were back in Indianapolis. So I remember going to Chatham Tap. I remember the name of the bar. That was really cool. You taught me about relegation and like the pyramid in general. And it was interesting, but, I was never really a sports fan in general. I just kind of always liked being along for the ride, even when we were IU fans in college. Then when we were talking in 2019, it was more so because I wanted to have something to do with my son, my kid. He was starting to walk at the time, and I've never really been into sports, but I wanted to give him the chance to at least like them, and so trying to expose him to something. Just thought I should get into something and let him see if he likes it, having no idea that I would absolutely fall head over heels in love. And it's I've often asked myself why it was Arsenal too, because again, like I said, March 2019. Well, yes, absolutely. Full well knowing, by the way, at that point in time, I had no idea what it meant that Langan is a Spurs fan. Had I known that, I don't know actually if that would have weighed in, but didn't know that. Well. The nerve I think you were trying not to touch, the reputation Arsenal fans have, is one of the shit variety, I think.
I was going to say, Saud just wanted to be on Arsenal Fan TV.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I get up every morning and watch AFTV. That's how I start my day. No, I didn't know any of that. I like their history. I like their story. That night in that bar, I told you I kind of like the story of a team that had a history of success, but weren't necessarily at the top. I didn't want to. I could have jumped onto the Liverpool.
You certainly didn't front run. That's for sure.
No. Yeah. Yes. Correct. And I think I am going to be hopefully someday vindicated in being able to tell people that I jumped in when Emery was in charge before the Europa League final. Those were dark days, and I thought maybe that was it. I was just horrifyingly incorrect. And hoping every day that we're actually a rock bottom now. But
things, and we'll get into it a little bit later, and things look a little dark at Arsenal, but a show of hands, and this is not a visual medium, the podcast, but show of hands, how many people have seen their team win a trophy?
I'm showing my hand.
Wait, Cochran, what trophy have you won?
They made it up. It was the Chinese. The Wolves went to China and played 2 matches.
I saw Everton win the Florida Cup in person.
There was a Premier League team that I think it was Man City or someone sent Man City must have sent player 33 through 60 in their roster.
All right. Saud's team has actually won a trophy in his fandom, a real trophy.
Now, Tim, I want you to be really careful what you're suggesting about the cup that we won.
Premier League Asia trophy. Put some respect to the name.
Hey, listen, none of y'all can come after Everton's Florida Cup victory that I saw in person. So,
Well, I will say it was it's been an experience so far, and I'm honestly happy I jumped in when I did. It brought joy in a way that I never knew. I didn't know I could like a sport in general. And better than anything else, honestly, is it's led to this. I have, you guys, we have a connection, and it's opened a whole different chapter of humanity I didn't even, appreciate before.
Yeah, man, it's really great that you guys have all joined in and on the fun that is the Prem. And fortunately, none of you jumped on the sadness that is Everton. So. Langan,
I'm really glad. Sorry, Tim.
How did you land on Everton?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
All right. So Everton was. I had tried to get into the Premier League prior to NBC taking over the television rights, and without an easy access to the games, it was hard for me to get in. I knew you were a Spurs fan, and I knew that Dempsey at the time, the American, was on the team, and that was a draw for me. I was like, well, I can get behind an American. And at that time, I believe there were 3 options to get behind an American, and that would be Brad Guzan, I believe, was at Villa, and then there was Tim Howard at Everton, and at the time was Dempsey at Spurs. And so I thought one of those would be my team, but it also really, when we were actually in college, we'd play FIFA against each other all the time. We actually all met living on the same floor in our my freshman dormitory, and 2 of you guys' sophomore dormitory. And we would play FIFA often, and I started watching Champions League, and that's where I got to see Thierry Henry for the first time. And Thierry Henry is just transcendently talented at football and was one of the most fun players to watch in the mid-2000s. And I felt an affinity towards Arsenal at the time. But again, without the regular TV, I couldn't get into it. And then NBC got the contract for the Premier League, and they announced that they were going to show every game. And I just started doing a bit of research, and I saw some highlights of what turned out to be Everton's best season in like 25 years. The 2014 team, which had Romelu Lukaku on loan from Chelsea, and ended up, I think, finishing in 5th place, and getting a Europa League bid. And then Romelu Lukaku shortly thereafter signed a contract to come to Everton on a permanent deal. And Samuel Eto'o, who I knew from World Cups, had signed a deal to come play for Everton. And I was like, this is fantastic. Like, everything about the coach, he was super positive. He was, Roberto Martinez was all about like getting behind the players, getting behind the team, and really just felt like he understood the club. And it just felt like this confluence of just like, this is the little team that could, and I want to be there before the rise. And I'm certainly still there before the rise, 6 years later. The rise has yet to happen. We have never finished as high as we finished before I started rooting for the team. But there's been highs and there's been lows. Romelu Lukaku's career with us, I will never take for granted. And yeah, it stinks that he's at Chelsea this summer. But man, it's going to take a lot for me to hate Romelu Lukaku. But I have very fond memories of a couple of very fun nights in Europe from that first season that I got to watch. If you like soccer coaches, Everton's the team for you because we go through one a year. So, like, there's new coaches all the time. But yeah, no,
there's a pull. There's a pull there. Everton's a legendary club, man. One of the founders.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. Club that's been in the top flight the most out of any club ever. So, there's a history there. We're a bit down on our luck, but I think, there was also a rumor at the time of new ownership coming in when I became a fan, and that ended up happening a couple years later. And, our new owner spent a lot of money. He sure has. And been good money. Our record signing is a pedophile. Alleged pedophile. But yeah, so that's how I stumbled upon Everton. Langan, was it Dempsey and the offerings of European football that drew you to Spurs?
No, Dempsey was with Fulham.
Was he?
There was, yeah, it was a few years prior to that. I remember when we signed Flint, and that was really cool. It felt like Spurs were going to kind of get big in America, and I suppose they did to a major degree. But Yeah, it was right after graduated college, and we had played games like we mentioned FIFA, and we always kind of tried to find our team style, and the style of Tottenham was of the kind of attacking on the front foot, pressing to the point of discomfort and being very shaky in the back, never winning really anything of much. Uh, that was super appealing because my other sports teams clearly display like my, I guess, like makeup around rooting for sports teams that struggle for a very long time and are not historically winners. That's who I've kind of found. So Cubs won the World Series. That was really a tremendous experience for me. And Spurs put me on some fun rides. It'll be surely fun whenever they win anything. But yeah, the first year I'd really jumped in post or prior to the World Cup. So World Cup qualifying was going on, and I was just watching as much football as I could. It was really fun, and started catching matches in the Premier League. And Spurs caught my eye. I liked the way they played. Luka Modric was just
I forgot he played for you guys.
Gareth Bale was kind of on the rise.
He still had hair then.
He still got hair now.
He's covering it up. He's covering up the bald spot.
That man, yeah, so good. He's got a lot of hair though.
He does have a lot of hair to cover that up.
At this stage, there's no reason to be hating on a good sunroof.
Yeah, respect. Oh boy. So yeah, Spurs ride was fun, but kind of just hopped in out of just like the draw to the game, and then they really captured my attention. They looked nice. They had fun players, and then they gradually just like the last decade has been a crazy ride.
Yeah,
but
the Pochettino years will whether they're a height or a plateau, they will certainly always be viewed as wild and crazy, because I remember exactly where I was, even as a not a Spurs fan, but a Spurs supporter of sorts. I will always remember where I was during that Ajax game. That was absolutely apeshit crazy. And watching them get to the final, the European final against Liverpool was, game after game, the City entanglements and then the Ajax game was just incredible.
Where were you?
I was in my car. I was watching the game on my phone in my car driving home from work. And as soon as I parked, that is when Lucas scored the game winner. And I just immediately, again, as I said before we started this podcast, counted to 100 and then called booze. And was like, did you just see that shit? Yeah, that was...
You turn around and saw how many backyards you'd cruise through, like clinging to the action over the last...
I ran a few people off the road, but they knew what was going on.
That match,
nothing that they could prove in the courts.
Allegedly.
Alleged. All speculation.
That match was too fun, man. That was about as joyous as the football's been. Definitely cried. I've cried at a number of matches and points, but that's just a common thing, I suppose. But man, that match was nuts. And then afterwards, you're seeing it was a remarkable comeback. I remember they went to halftime, and Ajax's song is I forget the name of it. Three Little Birds, and they're just singing this Marley song. Everyone, the players are smiling, walking off. You're like, oh, they think it's in the bag. And I mean, granted, everyone thought it was in the bag.
That's true.
Mercy. Hakeem Ziyech was running rampant, and we, I don't know, somehow managed to claw our way back. And yeah, that was tremendous. That was a good time. That's what the memories are really good for. Like when we watch football, one of the reasons why I always really get down on like the past year without any fans around was like the passion of a crowd and like the noise and like what that rises the players and changes on the pitch is just insane. And the times where a place goes just dead silent or just in a complete uproar, those are the moments that you're just like, oh wow.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right.
Those are the goosebumps. Those are like the real
My
emotion.
favorite part of watching soccer is seeing the ripple behind a goal when a goal is about to be scored, where you can see like certain fans can see it's curling in, and you just see the ripple out of them all standing up and going nuts.
Yeah,
that's
nice.
It's one of my favorite spectacles in all of sport. So we've talked about the good times. Let's talk about the current times. Let's talk about what just happened, and that would be the transfer window this summer closing, as well as the first few games of the season. As far as the window goes, I think most of our teams weren't making some big splashes. We could start off, we could talk about the biggest moves of the summer. I would say one of the bigger moves was Lukaku to Chelsea, but obviously the two biggest moves that will go down in history is the summer of the best players moving would be Messi to Paris and Ronaldo to United. I think Ronaldo to United is fantastic for the Premier League. I think it's going to bring more eyes, more money, and that's good for business. But Messi to Paris, I was surprised he didn't go for him. Anybody else a little surprised he didn't end up in the Premier League?
I am very surprised, honestly. I thought it was a done deal, particularly given that City had claimed their interest last summer during the whole contract issue that he had with Barcelona last summer. I know there was obviously the City interest in Kane, and that had a big part to play in how they did or did not pursue Messi this summer. I mean, I don't really know exactly what happened during the actual ins and outs of all that, but really it boils down to the fact that I thought he's 34. Ronaldo's going to be 36, and I know it's not like a competition or anything, but I think it would have been. I think all signs pointed towards both of them being in the Premier League at this point in time. It seemed like it was meant to be, and it almost seems like fitting into the narrative here. It almost seems like Messi backed down from a challenge in a way, because I mean I don't think there's a question that.
He did move first.
Right, but it's not about Ronaldo in that way. Like there's no questioning that the Premier League is more physical and it's a tougher league than Ligue 1. And I'm not in his head, but I would have respected a move to the Premier League like Ronaldo did, just for the sake of the challenge.
Fair enough, and I see your point. I just think my personal opinion on the two moves is that Ronaldo saw the writing on the wall. Football's been hard in a lot of places except for England. England's where all the money currently is. And to me, Ronaldo just saw it would have been funny if he had also ended up at Paris, because that's also where the money is, because oil. But if he wasn't going to go and play with Messi, he was probably going to end up back in the Premier League, so he could get a nice fat paycheck. And, whatever, more power to you. But I was interested to see that City didn't seem interested in trying to get Messi, and I think that's kind of Booz's fault. I think they thought they were going to land Kane, and Kane ended up backing out, and Messi had already gone to Paris, and it was kind of a done deal. Cochran, do you have anything to say on it?
I'll admit I don't know just how to pretend to start understanding how some of these larger deals when it comes to players of this caliber go through. I can't say couldn't even tell if City genuinely were interested in Ronaldo or what. Certainly is not outside of a Mendes play to kind of like make it seem that way. But again, I just have
Absolutely.
no idea. I think what's most interesting about this for me, more speaking on it, the fan that is from soccer business, is that Ronaldo and Messi have both. I've only seen them in Champions League, maybe some like domestic cup finals of theirs or Clásicos or whatever, but they've kind of existed like almost like stars I hear about and I see occasionally. So they're both obviously still pretty effective, but it'll be interesting to see. I think Ronaldo is joining a Man U squad that's going to need him and is going to be in the thick of like a pretty competitive top 4 or 5 teams this year. And I think he's going to be called upon. We're going to learn just how much he has left in the tank in terms of being a true impact player. And honestly, I couldn't even weigh in and say predict whether he is or is not. It's almost like this is my first chance to see it. I certainly won't judge the apex of his career from what I see now. It's just always like as we've aged, I've gone from being less interested into the phenom in the league and more so like the aging player still being crafty enough to remain effective or kind of just like on a farewell tour. Like he's going to be thrown into some pretty competitive situations. And I think it's going to be fun to watch.
Well, and actually you bring up an interesting point because Ronaldo might be one of the last players still playing who's going to have experience under Alex Ferguson at United. And if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is going to be the man going forward for United, I mean, you would think that Ronaldo, with the success and the pedigree that he has in his career, he's going to be able to say whether or not Ole is going to be the guy who's going to get it done, or whether Ole, as a lot of United fans feel, is just like a place taker manager. I hadn't even thought about it that way, but like how you kind of frame that. Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. I think I would imagine, knowing the path that Ronaldo took upon leaving. Sure, there's a lot of sentimentality to having him back.
Oh,
but,
for sure.
I'd be shocked if he had much like sway around decisions that extend beyond the next 14 months or so.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
I see. Totally see your point. I'm just kind of laughing. Like I bet you're happy to see Ronaldo on your squad, but you're not.
Yeah, you're gonna sell kits.
Like, oh, here's like a perfectly stable piece of,
but it'll be interesting to see if
it's like this is kind of I'm signing up for something.
I just think it'll be interesting to see if he'll be able to provide any insights to that board, which seems to not know what they're doing for the most part, as to whether Ole Gunnar is legitimately a head coach who belongs at United.
I think that's also very, very interesting. I think Ole probably had very little to nothing to do with any of this.
Correct.
They signed him because they didn't want City to sign him. And in a way, honestly, it's kind of one of my favorite things about the transfer window. City got their rival to sign a 37-year-old to egregious wages for 2 years. Again, it's Ronaldo, so he's gonna put on the Ronaldo show, and maybe he isn't. Maybe he's not gonna make it. Either way, it's going to be a show, and they're going to generate a bunch of shirt sales, and they're going to achieve greatness, certainly. United are in a pole position to really put on a push for the title, but also, it doesn't seem like, outside the name and the rivalry there, there's no way they were planning on having Ronaldo on their team.
No.
Like, what direction does this actually, like, what's the long-term plan here? This is a 2-year deal on a lot of money, but what are they actually trying to build?
Well, I think in my opinion, and maybe someone else can come in with theirs, but my opinion is that they see it as a money move. This is going to sell kits. This is going to make sure butts are in seats. It'll increase the value of their, club boxes and whatnot. And I think they're getting a player who, despite his age, is as good or better than anyone else they could offer at that position currently. without spending similar money on a different target during the transfer window. So I don't know. I 100% agree with you. I think I actually am even more cynical than you. I don't think even United bought him because he was going to go to City. I think his manager or his agent, Ronaldo being, created that out of whole cloth and just wanted to get a move to United, and United couldn't fathom the idea of Ronaldo playing for the Blues. So I think the whole Manchester City thing, I think that was made up by his agent, and it worked exactly how they thought it would work. And he got his move that he wanted. But honestly, I think it makes United more dangerous, and I am very interested to see how 36, 37-year-old Ronaldo fares in the Premier League.
Yeah, United's attacks out of control. They have so many options.
The other thing is, and I'll focus on you, Booze. Messi to Paris means Pochettino gets to play with perhaps, if not the greatest, then the second greatest Argentinian player of all time. Like, he's gotta be thrilled about the prospects where earlier in this window it was maybe a possibility that he returned to Spurs.
Yeah, but a lot of accounts, I think he wanted to come back. It was a little shaky, and a lot changed. I mean, as soon as the Messi news dropped, things got real wild because no one was. Well, it didn't seem many were planning that was going to be possible.
Yeah.
So
Messi didn't seem like he thought it was possible.
No. So Leo falls in Mauricio's lap. That's super fun. I hope they win some things this year. That would be really nice. It's kind of like their ownership group, Qatari. They're building an event around all of this. It seems like they're pouring their resources into this period of time. So
I heard they're really great and kind.
No one's have had any issues with anyone from Qatar.
And generous.
They're not paying me, so I'm not saying anything.
All right, well, we don't have to get into that any further. Instead, we can pivot to what just ended and that we've hinted at and talked about earlier, and that's the transfer window wrapping up. I will speak for Everton real fast. We didn't do a lot of things. We didn't spend a lot of money, but we did buy Damari Gray for £2 million, and it's turning out to be a fantastic deal for us. So far, he's scoring £1 million per goal. So, I can't complain. Other than that, Everton's window was stifled by financial fair play, which is bullshit that prevents teams that are trying to do exactly what City did a couple of years ago from doing exactly what City did a few years ago. So we couldn't.
So what did you do?
We couldn't really spend a whole lot of money. So basically, we got rid of a bunch of waste. A bunch of players who weren't going to play for us. Josh King, who we signed last year, was like on a free. Yannick Bolasie finally left the team. We let some youngsters leave the team as well. Our backup goalie left. Actually, both of our backup goalies left. Mohamed Bezic, who you probably don't remember, who we signed 5 years ago, finally left the team. He has not played for us in about 3 years. We let Bernard, the Brazilian winger, who we signed a couple years ago, we let him go on a free. And we sent Moise Keane on a 2-year loan to Juventus, who we bought him from 2 years ago. He is on a 2-year loan with them with an obligation to buy. So we didn't do much. It was just kind of moving pieces around. There were rumors of us moving James Rodriguez to Porto, I believe. That kind of fell through. So James is going to play for us this year again, which he's a good player. He's not exactly in Rafa Benitez's plans. Rafa made that clear. But he's a good player, so you hope you can find something from him this season. But basically, our signings were either all Damari Gray for £2 million, or they were just bringing in players on frees. So we got Andros Townsend on a free. We got Salman Rondon on a free. So we have a little bit of a backup at striker. But other than that, it was a pretty quiet window for Everton because of financial fair play.
Why? What? I didn't know about the. Was there a breach or violation?
There was no breach or violation. There was no breach or violation. It was just we were bumping up against FFP because we've spent wildly over the last 5 or so years, and none of those players have turned out like we thought they would. Again, our record signing is a sex pest. So, Gylfi Sigurdsson might never play for Everton again because he's going to jail. So you spend £45 million on a player like that, and you can't bring in advertising, and you're not going into Europe and bringing in more money. So basically, we couldn't spend any more money than we sent out this window. So whether our owner wanted to or not, our owner is a billionaire. He wants to throw in more money into the team, but he's just not legally allowed to without breaching financial fair play.
I thought they, I don't want to make this about FFP, but didn't they suspend that for the summer, or didn't they waive some stuff for the pandemic?
Not as far as I know. Has anybody else heard anything about that? Because I have not.
They waived it.
Everything's
waived.
allowed.
It's gone.
Just don't worry about it anymore. Yeah. Hey, Damari Gray's tight.
Yeah.
It's good.
So far so great,
Ronnie, you spent a lot of money.
Yeah, quite a bit.
I was just looking at the sheet here. It was really just spent $2.2 million in sum. Everton did. It's a departure a bit from what Arsenal spent. I will talk about this in a moment, but I had a question before we got into this while we were talking about PSG for you, BL. Part of the I just want to know what you would think about this. What if there wasn't that whole Messi to PSG thing that happened? Do you think Harry Kane might have gone to PSG? We talked about that in a text earlier, but just want to get more of your thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think that was one of the better case scenarios for Spurs, ideally. And he wanted to leave. Made it very clear a number of times. Levy's kind of a ball buster, and that's a serious understatement. And didn't want to deal, so didn't deal. But I think if PSG, somebody out of the league came in, it would have been palatable to the fans. He's got to look at it through a number of dimensions, and selling to another, league rival. Albeit a club that just continuously finishes above us and wins things.
That's what you can do when you
for the
infinite
stature
money.
It's a tough look for the stature of a club that Levy wants Spurs to be, though. They built a new stadium. He is trying to hold them to the highest regard, and he's a motherfucker. So he just doesn't deal.
Yeah, there's a ruthlessness in him that I also see in mid-90s Jerry Reinsdorf, Jerry Reinsdorf.
Jerry Maguire.
Oh, what's that?
Who's
Jerry
that?
Maguire.
Oh, Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner of the Bulls, and the White Sox.
Yeah.
Hold on, Saud's peeing.
Sorry, guys. Should have muted.
No, I like Jerry Reinsdorf notoriously blamed all of the problems that management ever had with the 90s Bulls on Jerry Krause, who even after his death is still vilified as some sort of bastard who was trying to break up the mid 90s Bulls. But that was all coming down from the top. Jerry Krause would not be allowed to have kept his job had Jerry Reinsdorf, not as the owner of the Chicago Bulls, not decided that that's exactly what he wanted to do as well. And that was cost cutting. It wasn't about championships anymore. They had already won 5, and 5 was enough for them. They were tired of paying players as much as they were. And that sort of ruthlessness really reminds me of Levy at Spurs. Well, if you want Harry Kane to move inside this league, then he's going to move when I feel like it at the price I feel like. And that's why Spurs are what they are, in my opinion, is they are ruthless when it comes to player moves at times. And Levy is not afraid to be the bad guy when it comes to this sort of negotiation tactic. And he, you see other teams kind of fold. And Saud, you kind of talked about it when it came to United and City fighting over Ronaldo. You see other teams make decisions that might not be financially smart or in the best interest of their football team, but it's in the best interest of their PR. And Levy does not give a shit.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been a nice little starter pack. The fee, if Kane had gone, obviously there's a lot of merit to the Harry Kane being at the club, not only for the talent but name recognition and all that.
They felt out a bunch of people too, like a few strikers in Italy that they were interested in buying. And I think if there would have been more of a possibility there, that they just needed to replace him, and they didn't want to be,
Yeah, you can't do that at the last minute in the window.
Yeah, just kind of taken hostage to the situation. So, I was really happy with what Spurs did. I mean, I didn't think we were going to keep Kane. I thought he was leaving. I wanted us to add to defense. We signed the Italian Defender of the Year, Argentinian guy. That's really exciting. Signed some young talent from Spain, and we had a lot of people that we had to get off our books. So, you never know how people from different leagues are gonna bed in at a club. It always takes time.
Yeah. But
there were some nice ideas, prospects of what might happen. And then on deadline day, we signed a right back from Barcelona that has been a gap for us really since Kyle Walker left.
Plus he's royal.
I don't know, 4 years ago. So yeah, we and a few other additions, a guy for long term that we loaned back. It was a good window. Got rid of some people who didn't want to be there. Tanguy and Ndombele really wants to leave, which sucks.
He didn't though.
You know what? No, he didn't, and so I don't know how that'll turn out because Nuno has been very unpleased with him. Mike, I actually wanted to ask you, really quickly, Saud, sir. Nuno, how was he with players who turned on him, or got on his bad side? Is there a way to get off of it? Or are you stuck? See,
yeah, the experience at Wolves was once you're on the bad side, it was very much over. It was pretty tight squad, pretty tight with his minutes. So if you were in his good graces and not in the 11, you're looking at 3 minutes in a faraway Carabao early match. So when you were out, you were out. We've had a couple of players that never saw a minute, so I think he's given the same experience, same Nuno. But he has a reason,
Yeah. Apparently, he's been quite upset about Tanguy's behavior to the point that he just says, "I flat out can't talk about it." So it's not good. But I mean, this guy, record signing for Spurs, super talented. I think on the most negative side, people might call him a YouTube player. Somebody's just all flash, all panache. But he's a really good player. and we need a midfielder, like we always need midfielders. So I surely hope he makes his way back in. But yeah, really kind of fun start for Spurs in hilarious ways and a touch undeserving of the situation. But we have a mentality at the moment. It's kind of nice.
How do you feel about Serge leaving?
He wanted to leave.
He had a decent run of form last year.
Yeah, he's a good player. He's fine, but like Saud sir, you know somebody who's just like dead set on something else. Like we're adults. This guy did not want to fucking be there at all. Made it clear repeatedly, and you know, like he just wasn't gonna play.
I mean, he had flash. As far as I understand, he had flashes of good form, but there were like a lot of errors here and there. Hard to trust him.
He's a little reckless.
So he's an Arsenal player.
Yeah, so that's why I'm asking. There's fucking links to Arsenal with this man, and just want to know what the deal is. He sounds perfect.
Oh, that's great. I mean, oh wow, I could absolutely see him signing for you guys.
Arsenal would only buy him if he played for Chelsea, and if they had to pay $30 million for him past the age of 32.
That's the thing. Really he's too young. He's too young. He's coming for a crosstown rival, but he's too young yet.
He might be really pissed at Spurs. You might get like just a bottle of lightning.
So the opposite of a Willian. The opposite of David Luiz.
You know what? I hope he signs with you, Saud. That would be so fun. It would make me laugh so hard. This guy's really good. He's a good right back. He's a little bit reckless.
Yeah.
But he's super fast. He's short. He wins a lot of headers, though. Valuable player. Really impressive guy.
How many red cards a year? It's a minimum 3 to make the starting 11.
I'd say under on 3, but he's right there. 3.5, it's the under, surely.
All right, so while we're at it, we're talking to Boozy. Kind of hinted at league position, saying Spurs undeserved. Last time I looked at the old league table, I saw Spurs right there at the top. I think deserved. You played City, you beat them. You played City 2 other teams who I can't remember right now. I've been drinking, but you beat them.
Played Michael.
And then at the other end of the table, we got Arsenal. Arsenal, you played 3 teams. They beat you. You look like shit. Real bad.
Yeah.
Bad.
I would say Spurs deserve first as much as Arsenal deserve 20th right now. Wolves, 18th. Unfairly 18th. You're in the relegation zone, and your XG against United alone was like 3.7 versus like 0.7, and you end up losing the game. You've had horrible luck all season, and then my Blues, the Toffees, are in 6th place, and we've played no one. and we've drawn 1 and won 2 against garbage opponents. We're phonies at 6. Spurs, I think, are not necessarily title contenders, but certainly top 4 contenders. Arsenal, I don't think are actually going to be relegation contenders, but I think mid-table is what we can expect from them. And Wolves, I don't know what to think. So let's start off with Mike. Mike, what do you think Wolves are going to do this year?
Well, Tim, I think you should know better, especially based on the previous biggest signing of Everton history. A table that young, it is irresponsible and borderline illegal to look at that hard.
Gylfi Sigurdsson told me it would be okay.
There have been 3 matches. Certainly, if you're riding on 9 points or 6, if you're at the top of the table, it feels good, but it means nothing. And I think Wolves are the perfect case in point. This year, the season is going to be all about the transition in eras with like a true philosophical shift in what the team is doing. And so 0 points, but the style they've been playing under Lage is much preferable to like 4 points in some real, I call them shit fests. I didn't know what the proper, you'll have to educate me on the proper term.
They call them shit fests.
Really boring hour of like 3 total shots by both teams. Like, I feel like there was a point in every match last season for Wolves when an announcer would make a reference to how light of a workday the opposing keeper has had. Like, and it happened every time. It wasn't just sometimes. It was just like, oh, here's the part of the match where they say, not a lot to do today, but he'll take it. He's happy. He's just like waving at his teammates, like bored. So in any sense, what do I expect from the Wolves this season? I think it would be an absolute success to finish mid-table, even 10th. It's all about how well the style Lage wants to play takes root and how well he's able to find some players. The Wolves are full of some promising young guys and some more established older guys. And the question really was how many of them were going to fit into the new style. And when you're running on a budget, you don't get the chance to say, okay, none of you fit this style. We'll just start anew. It's kind of like some sort of fit and we're going to make it work. You can't overhaul the whole roster overnight. So I think they'll be spicy. They'll still lack a finishing ball. I'm nervous about my main man Raul. I don't know if he's going to get it together or not. Like it's going to feel a lot nicer when he puts one in the back of the net and kind of puts some things at ease. He looks great out there, but it just it's scary to see a man who like plays with his head so much wearing a protective helmet. Yeah. So all in all, I think the Wolves are headed for a pretty exciting season in the temper your expectations zone of like an exciting season for Wolves. Doesn't really need to flirt with Europa positions. A run in a cup would be nice just because it gives you a little extra urgency to the later stage of the season, but this one's all about development for us.
Hey, and that's it's very even keeled of you to say, but I thought your performance against United, while it was super disappointing that you guys didn't get the result, one of the few games other than an Everton game that I watched this season from beginning to end, and you guys were absolutely dominant. And I think the way you guys played is as an outsider would boost me because that was an exciting, fantastic way to play, and some of those balls are going to end up in the back of the net throughout the rest of the season. And yeah, I think you guys have a healthy chance of making a fun run out of it this year if the team continues to buy in. However, Saud, how are we feeling about Arsenal? Because as much optimism as I feel for Cochran and his team, I feel as you take your medicine,
it's bad.
And that's how much of concern I have over what Arsenal are going to have to sift through this season.
Things are dark. It's true. I alluded to the fact that when I signed up for this, it was because I love the club, and you told me that you don't choose your club chooses you. It was a good feeling, and it was a good fit, and I still believe that. I love this club. I've vicariously lived through the good times through YouTube videos and reading match reports from 30 years ago. I watched Anfield '89. Read the books. I've similarly looked into the bad times, and I hope I'm right when I say that this has got to be rock bottom for this phase in Arsenal's incarnation.
Do you think Arteta can make it through, or is he not the answer?
The problem really is that no one really knows. At this point, I think he's proved.
Well, that's why I'm asking you. I'm asking you because I want to know your opinion.
Let me answer that in a very, very roundabout way. I mean, I don't know either. That's the problem. I like him.
I
I
know.
like
Make a
I like
guess.
the way he talks. I think he could do a lot of good. I think time's running out, and he's on thin ice because a young manager has good ideas and who's been having green shoots seen for the last 2 years, but nothing more has happened. Can't keep developing at a club like Arsenal. Maybe he has to come back someday. Maybe he has to develop at a different club. But if we had started doing what we're doing now with the obvious direction that Arsenal are going in with the transfer window 2 years ago, rather than now with you look at look at our incoming, some 6 players, 221, 222, 223-year-olds. There's a clear difference in what they've been doing instead of literally drunkenly throwing darts at a board and like signing Willian or like extending Granit Xhaka's contract for no reason after he's supposed to go to Roma.
Oh my god!
Like there's still random terrible decisions. But
how did you not get rid of that guy?
I can't believe he's not on this departures
like
list.
Someone was willing to pay you to get rid of Granit Xhaka, and you're like, no.
Well, we're gonna pay him more.
I think part of the problem also is that there's this idea that Arsenal don't sell well, so they're trying. There's new management now, like there has been basically every year. You said Everton go through a new head coach. We go through a new fucking hierarchy every year, and so there have been terrible decisions made since essentially Wenger. He checked out in like 2016, so like there were just random like Ozil's contract extension right before we left. Yeah, just sitting in the technical area, smoking weed. No, like there were questionable decisions made at the end of his tenure.
Wenger smoked grass.
Oh, know Wenger smokes grass, and it's Wenger. It's Wenger. Let's go with the
Wenger does what he wants. No, so like it started a long time ago, but Everton he left obviously. Wenger had such control over the club in ways that they're like now coping with. Like multiple teams have come in to try to sort things out, have made decisions and try to build something, and it hasn't worked out. Arteta's the first one who's actually tried to build something from the ground up, and now is what we're seeing is the beginning of an idea, but time's running out. So we got a good foundation, and I'm optimistic. I honestly am.
What's the idea?
Well, we're building for the future now. I think there's an acceptance that we're obviously not a club with the pull to bring in world-class players that like automatically put us back in contention for the title or even top 4. I think you're at top 4 is at a question.
But here's my question.
I guess what I'm asking is like the style, like the philosophy.
Yeah, because
you're implying that you liked Arteta's idea. What is it?
What I liked about his idea at the beginning was the fact that he was trying to teach them to look at the ball and find space because we were lacking that at the end of Emery. He started teaching them tactics. That's what the players say. The players love him because he teaches them a lot. I think, and I don't know, I'm not there, but I think that one of the issues is that he's got a lot of ideas and there's not as much room for creativity, and it's pinning these players into too rigid a system. He's overcoaching him maybe in a way is one way to put it. He's also very predictable in that he wants everything to go to the left, and Kieran Tierney can only put in so many crosses when no one else is in the box to catch him. Everyone can see that. So like there's things are too rehearsed for one. There's not enough room for fluidity in anywhere apart from the 18-yard box. It was best put on display during the Man City travesty when Ederson was just standing at the edge of the box with his foot on the ball, waiting for them to do something, and they were just there's a screenshot of this. There's just like 2 Arsenal players just staring at him because they were like coached to like wait. I guess I don't know. Like they weren't thinking for themselves. It was clear, and I think there's an issue with like muddling down into tactics. That's part of probably a larger problem. But I digress. To answer your question, Langan, the direction I think we're going in terms of the youth is one thing. The style of play, I don't know. I don't think anyone does at this point. It was supposed to be this fast-paced, like fluid, creative, free football that Wenger played, but that it's clearly out of our grasp at this point in time. And I think that's been a struggle with Emery. That's obviously been a struggle now with Arteta.
Do you think it's more of a problem with personnel, or do you think it's a problem with philosophy? And I'm asking your opinion.
I think it's a problem with a little bit of both. Mostly personnel, though. Arteta wants to play in a way. If you want to really, really be very reductive about it, and it doesn't do it justice, but essentially wants to play like Pep at Man City. But
I mean, he learned from Pep. Like, that makes sense. That's a coaching tree. There's nothing reductive about that. That makes perfect sense.
But Pep also is a world-class coach, and you can't compare the two. You just can't. And also, if you separate that from everything, Pep also needed very, very, very explicit conditions for him to succeed at Man City. They spent so much money, and they literally built a new football ground around his vision. So like we don't have that, and he's trying to implement an idea that is not the environment we have is not conducible to it flourishing, I think. So it's going to take time, and I think that's kind of what we're maybe seeing now, but this should have happened 2 years ago, and I think that's why he might be in trouble in that regard. People are excited about a project, certainly, but with him, I think the patience is wearing thin.
All right. So where do you see Arsenal finishing this season?
with everything I said, I am pretty excited about the team we have. There's a lot of talent in some of the people we brought in. There's obviously a lot of talent in the team we had already. These first 3 games are a terrible indication, I think. Just like Mike C said, it's hard to take a look at the table and try to make anything more out of it after 3 games in international break, particularly with what we've had so far. There's obviously always excuses to be made, mitigating factors, but the whole COVID thing before the Brentford game, I think, had a big role to play in, at least a role to play. It was still a very poor performance, and there's no forgiving that. That should have been better, and that was one game of these 3 that I think we're projected to maybe get points out of. But I don't think there's any shame in losing to the European champions or the Premier League champions. There's certainly shame in the way it happened. The performances were hapless and disorganized. But I think, in a way, everyone was kind of waiting for the window to close and everyone to come back from illnesses and injuries. And we're looking forward to the next run of 7 games that, honestly, we should get close to 16, 17 points out of, and hopefully rejuvenate a good start to and run into the rest of the season.
All right, so where do you think you end up?
Yeah, to answer the question, I honestly think we could put a good push into finishing in the top 6. Top 4 is, I think, way out of our reach. 6 would be a serious fight, but if things go well, I think that's where we could tuck in
6 through 8,
5th or
somewhere in
6th.
there.
What do you think your odds of relegation are?
Odds of relegation, well, obviously at this point, 100%. We're nailed down. We're going down right now. The season ends tomorrow. So
I think you got a little bit more money than a few other clubs where you could take that down to about
teams.
0.
I think in the worst case scenario, we're not going to finish in the bottom 10. I mean, I think 8th is as low as we could finish.
I think you can finish. I think you can finish a lot lower than 8th. Honestly, I think you guys are going through a crisis of conscience, and I think.
Yeah, he started Sead Kolasinac in a back 3 against Man City.
Yeah,
they were high.
There's some decisions happening. I honestly think that you guys could finish like 13th through 15th, and it would not surprise me. And it would be, obviously Arteta would no longer be at the club, but there's a part of me that thinks that Arsenal is a disaster that's been brewing for years.
Yeah, that's very clear.
And it's not Arteta's fault, but it's just consistent bad buying with an apathetic owner. And I don't think you guys have any chance of getting relegated, but I do think you have a chance of having an embarrassing season. And maybe that's what you need, honestly.
I think we've had 2 of those already. 8th is embarrassing for Arsenal. Arsenal Football Club should not finish 8th. And at this point in time, I think, like I said, that we're close to the end of the rope with Arteta. If especially with the North London Derby coming up in a few games, particularly.
Yeah, when do we play?
I think right it's October, I think, and I honestly don't know if it's home or away.
That could be Judgment Day.
Exactly. If we don't like, there's certain things that people have patience for, but if we're like sitting in the bottom half of the table and we lose the North London Derby, he's done. And with this squad, I think looking at the talent of the squad, there's a very clear. I think all it takes is maybe a fresh look. So like, I'm not going to be surprised, even if coming back from the international break, we have a different goalkeeper starting against Norwich, and we have a pretty different 11 than we've seen before. And maybe a different head coach also might play a role in us not finishing 12th, 13th. I think the talent's there for us to finish much, much better than that.
Fair enough. Langan, Spurs currently in first, top of the table. They're gonna stay there, right? Finish the season.
Maybe.
All right, great analysis.
Doubtful. I think we have kind of an interesting team. I mean, we've got a lot of talent, a lot of depth. As I mentioned, I kind of like signings. You never know how quickly they'll make their way in. But weaknesses last year were defense and attack, not named Harry or Sonny. And thus far, the way Nuno has kind of made us look, it's following a pattern, but it's been brief. So we played City on the road. We looked really good. Thought we deserved to win. We played Wolves. I don't think we deserved to win. Wolves were definitely on the better side. But we kind of took an early lead and just held on for a while. And then Watford at home, and that's one that you hope you win like 4 or 5-0, but we never seem to handle Watford well. And yeah, so like no goals given up, but not a lot of offense, and so not sure what we'll see. I would love if we finish in the top 4. Really like Harry Kane to win a trophy with Spurs. I think that would be quite cool.
Be fun.
He still wants to leave. I don't know if any of that'll happen. It's seemingly really early. Coming into the year before the first stretch of matches, I wasn't feeling that confident, but I also thought Harry was leaving. So I haven't had that much time to actually ruminate on us being potentially good. It's fun.
Yeah.
It'll be a cool ride. It's not Mourinho. That's good.
Yeah.
Like it's all up from there.
Yeah, no, I think I to review your teams, I think Wolves are in a fun place. I think Spurs could definitely be in a fun place. It seems like that's going well early on. And Arsenal also exists. So I think with that, with our discussions, concluding on both the transfer window and our thoughts for this season, I'm just thinking we wrap this up with a couple wild, crazy predictions. None of us know anything. None of us are in the know, and none of us have any knowledge that makes us qualified to make these predictions, which will make them all that much more fun. And that's why I would like to know, who do you guys think is going to win the Premier League this year? What do you think your final position in the table will be? And who is going to be the player of the year in the Premier League? I will start with you, Mike.
That's an easy answer because it'll be Wolves. No, I don't think there's, you called the segment crazy titles or crazy predictions. I don't think this is wildly crazy, but I think Liverpool is going to win the Premier League this year. I think there's enough quality that there's not going to be one team that runs off like a total track meet. And I think last year they were kind of sleeping tiger, and they're hungry again. I think I guess that'd be my prediction for the winner. Wolves, I live and breathe with the Kool-Aid and the shades on. So I said 10th earlier. I was hedging. I think they have a chance to probably come fighting for 7th or 8th if they can get things to click. Based purely on optimism, I could certainly see it going the other direction, but we've seen in seasons past that a team that can put together and put them in the back of the net can get hot, and there's points to be had against some of the bottom rungs of the table this year that I think in previous seasons will definitely have the worst record against the bottom 4 to 6 teams in the table. I think this year we're going to actually get 3 points when we ought to more frequently, and I think that's going to make it easy to hang around with the elbow to elbow with some of the other next tier down in the league. And then player of the year, Adama Traore is going to be the first person to win it without scoring any goals, but putting on such a show in almost scoring goals that they have to give it to him.
What a fucking player that guy is. What a fucking player. He may never score a goal again, but what a fucking player that guy is.
I could see it going to Lukaku. I could see it going to some of the players that get a narrative, but I think who's it going to be? Well, I mean, I think if riding with my Liverpool prediction, I could see it being solid, just finding a lot more success this season than last season. So I'll stick with Liverpool.
Yeah. Saud, who do you got as the winners of the Premier League this year? Who is your player of the year, and where does Arsenal finish in the table?
Well, I have a sinking feeling that we're going to see Chelsea at the top of the table at the end of the year. I don't want it to be true. I'd almost rather be nearly anyone else. I think Man City are going to be the ones to put up the best fight to prevent that from happening. But I do think that United are going to put in a push too. United are United, and I think Ollie is Ollie, and Ronaldo I think is going to be a double-edged sword in a way. I just feel that's going to be something that United are Arsenal in a way, except just not as hapless. So like very United things can happen in that way. And so I don't think they're going to come close to winning this year. Player of the year, gosh, I don't know. I see Grealish maybe getting it if he does well, even if he does like moderately better than mediocre. I think he's a shoo-in for at least contention anyway. And maybe someone from West Ham. I think like they've got a couple of guys that are bright, and that's usually like Declan Rice seems like someone that would be considered for player of the year at this point.
Langan, you don't like anyone from West Ham, do you?
Cresswell. I don't know. They seem like
West Ham's nice, man.
They look
There's
exciting.
Not, there's not one player from West Ham that you're very much enamored with, is there?
There's a few, but Mikel Antonio is just a real deal.
Yeah. In regards to where I think Arsenal are going to finish, listen, things are dark. I've said that multiple times. There's no hiding at this point, and I think there's been a reckoning to like a real good look in the mirror has maybe finally started to happen, and I think we know where we are. That being said, I'm excited, honestly. Despite everything, there's been a lot of random shit that's happened, but a lot of it has been good. I'm almost looking past the past couple of matches. And looking forward into the future, I think now that Arteta has the players that he wants to play in the system that he wants, which it looks like he's going to a back three again. But he likes the back four with a very versatile right back, goalkeeper, and right center back. He's got all that now. So no excuses. Even if he's gone, we got a young team that anyone could really come in and mold in a way with a lot of exciting talent. I think with good push Sixth is not out of reach. Any more than that is probably out of question. But I think the fact that it's realistic in a way, it appears to be, with this pivot towards going after youth players, that's the best thing about the transfer window. That's more optimistic than honestly any, besides the Carabao Cup or FA Cup, the only two trophies we can win. That's what I have to look forward to at this point. My concern with all of that is, even though it looks like the football might be heading in the right direction, I still think that this whole European Super League thing is still looming above us, behind us, in front of us. And from my perspective, the summer's been great with everything that we just talked about, but I still just have this terrible feeling that behind the scenes, and particularly with us, it's hard to not think about the behind the scenes with the Amazon cameras on us. They still don't care, the Cronkies, our owners. So it's nice that it looks like we're changing from just like kind of buying players at random, buying, just that Arsenal, that thought. We're just one signing away from challenging again. And we're not just trying to paper over things by buying big players. We're changing things up, going after youth, changing the wage structure we have. All that kind of doesn't matter in a way, because we already know that all they want is the Super League. And so they don't care about where we finish at the end. It's just about vibes. And that's what I'm worried about. Like, is this all just because they want us to look good so we can still be included in the conversation the next time it comes around? The Super League doesn't matter. It doesn't care about the performance on the pitch. If it did, why were Spurs or United, for that matter, included? None of us have had really great success recently. Obviously, revenue is a big thing.
Moose's eyebrows went up on that one. Of course, Spurs are included, or Spurs.
Well, so obviously it's about revenue. It's obviously not much about performance, but it's also about perception. And Arsenal's perception is what's really hurting now. That's where I think the spending's coming from. I'm happy that a side effect seems to be a pivot away from the stupid deals, hopefully, and a good direction. That's what I'm optimistic about. And I think if we really put our shit together, a good push towards those European spots is a possibility.
All right. So give me a number. Where you think you're finishing?
Sixth.
All right. And who's your player of the year?
Well, like I said, I think it's going to be Grealish.
Okay. Fair enough. Langan, who's your winners? Who's your
probably
POI? And where are you in the table?
I think Rana's got it right. I think it's Chelsea. There's a tier of three at the top. Liverpool's in. City's also in. And United's probably kind of knocking, and Spurs are somewhere in the mix, and West Ham somewhere in the mix, and Leicester somewhere in the mix. Arsenal's probably a little bit behind them. Wolves have looked great, but
so good.
There's a pretty class tier up there. I think it'll be Chelsea. They're too good. Lukaku's back. He's unbelievable.
One of my favorites.
They don't have to rely on Tímo Werner anymore, and Tímo Werner is so much better.
Forgot about
so Werner. Much better. Like they're just loaded. They have so many options. Fantastic roster. Just signed Saul. They're nice, unfortunately.
So that's your winners. Where is Spurs placed in the table?
Because I'm an optimist and I'm generally happy. I think they'll finish in the top four. Do I really? Whatever. They finished fourth.
And your player of the year?
In the case that Chelsea wins, who's Chelsea's best player? Mason Mount. That's.
Yeah, I could see that.
He could capture the attention of the British population. Don't forget, this is quite a nationalist group that we've got here running the presses.
That is true,
and I don't think that's that blasphemous of a statement.
But
so they like their own. They like their own. The Declan Rice claim was pretty nice. If Declan Rice or if West Ham finished in the top four, maybe that could be possible. Rana, that's not a bad call at all.
Listen, I loved hearing what all three of you said, and I'm just here to give you not a prediction, just I'm telling you it's going to happen. And that's, of course, who's going to be the winners of the league? City. It's going to come down to the last couple weeks, and Chelsea's going to be right there, but it's pretty much going to be those two. Liverpool will be a bit of a distant third by the end of the season. City's going to win it because they'll be knocked out of the Champions League yet again early. And Pep will still have that to be his his unachievable goal at City is he will not be able to win.
God, I honestly hope you're right so bad. I hope that's exactly what happens.
But City will win it, and Chelsea will be there at the end. But it'll be City. And where are we finishing in the league? Well, we're finishing 5, 9, 10, and 12. That's where we're finishing. Who's finishing 5? That's Spurs. Spurs, I think, have a good team. They got a good coach. They're finishing 5th. They're going to Europa. Who's finishing 9th? Unfortunately, they have the team and they have the quality, but the goals just aren't going in. So 9th is going to go to Wolves. Everton, finishing in the top half of the table. We're finishing at 10. It's a disappointing season to be sure, but we weren't allowed to spend a lot of money and, record signings is sex pest. That shit happens. So we're 10th. Arsenal. Arteta's out probably in the first 7 to 10 weeks. I don't think he should be necessarily, but no one's looking to take over your position. You're ending up 12th.
It's hard, man. I think you're right.
And it's going to be a long season for Arsenal. I think you end up just recovering in the next couple of years, but it's 12th for Arsenal for me. And Player of the Year. There's only one Player of the Year. And, well, Cristiano Ronaldo, after I'd already decided who was winning Player of the Year, Cristiano Ronaldo decided to move to the Premier League. I still stand by my original prediction. That's Romelu Lukaku. The guy's fucking great, and he went to Italy, and he got greater. And now he's coming back for a team that he absolutely adores, a childhood fan of Chelsea. And I wish he was a childhood fan of Everton, but he just isn't. But the man is dominant and in the prime of his career, and I think he has a solid chance of scoring 25 to 30 goals this year. He's that good of a striker. And
yeah, Chelsea's great.
And Chelsea, he's surrounded by so much talent.
He's gonna
25
feast. Is probably an understatement. 30 might be an understatement. I mean, he is going to feast.
Well, I'm just talking about in the league. And
this guy's about to feast.
I can see him struggle a bit. I do hate Chelsea, and maybe I'm blinded a bit. And obviously, the Arsenal game does not count as a good display because it was Arsenal. And Rob Holding was the guy guarding him.
Get used to saying that.
I can see he needed space. I'm not going to try to pretend like I'm a guy who watched Serie A football, but I've seen enough to know that he needs a bit of space, and I don't know if he's going to get that, particularly when he plays top 6.
I've watched a tremendous amount of Romelu Lukaku in my life, and that man is a born goal scorer. And yeah, he doesn't have a historical success against the top 6, but he also has never been surrounded by the talent like he will be surrounded at Chelsea. And I really think he's going to have an amazing season this year.
Can I give you what I think is a shocking prediction?
Sure.
Yes.
Chelsea have a new head coach before the season's over.
Wow.
Why do you think
what leads you, to this prediction?
Mainly spite and hope, but also I don't know. I think the most recent when they went down to 10 men the other day, that was a really, really good display of a very good managerial skill from Thomas Tuchel. But the way they played towards the end of the last season as well just didn't seem it seemed like they were scraping by too many 1-0s. It really seemed to be a bit of a throwback to the days of boring Arsenal. But they got the job done too. And maybe I'm wrong, but I can see. I can see some.
It's a manager of the year, no? Last season that you're expecting to get fired.
Yeah, I'm talking about this season.
All right,
not last
season. Fair enough.
You also think they're going to win the league and he's going to get fired? So, like, they're going to light the world on fire in the second half?
I said I had a sinking feeling. For what it's worth, I think City's going to win the league. I never actually said that.
We'll go back on the record and check it out.
He said it was a crazy prediction. Let the man.
I'm with it. I'm trying
to through him to Chelsea.
Trying to envision.
I just think that there's something that doesn't seem sustainable in the midfield. Maybe they fixed those problems over the summer. They seem to have sold a lot and brought in a couple of obviously a good attacker. But I don't know. I can see his system getting solved this year. He seemed the way he implemented the. I got a lot of Emery vibes basically from him last year.
All right.
I'm probably wrong. That's why I called it a crazy prediction.
I hope you're right.
I could see it happening. I could see them falling.
I feel like those are Gooner shaded glasses you're looking through right there. Because even if Tommy Touche struggles, I think he's walking out this season still in the managerial position.
Maybe
him struggling this year is them finishing in Europa League places. That's what I feel.
I don't think that's acceptable by the ownership of Chelsea. And I think them languishing in 6th or 7th after what they spent might be grounds for replacement.
And that would be them struggling. But
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I'm
not saying that they're not the same.
15th. No one's.
That's what I'm saying.
No one's arguing that you're saying.
Maybe they're not going to be happy with the way he's doing things by the end of the year. That's all.
No one's arguing that you're saying that, but just. Their worst case scenario is better than my best case scenario.
Also, they fired their coach last year and won the Champions League, so they could still win the league even though this guy gets fired.
It's true. It's very true.
It would be quite an experience.
All right. Well, I think that does it for this podcast. Guys, I just want to say this was fantastic. It was cathartic. It was erotic. And it was fan fiction-ish. Right there at the end with Saud. So I just want to thank you all, Mike, Saud, Brendan, for joining me. And maybe the next time there's not a soccer game some weekend, we can do this again and reevaluate all of our positions on the season.
I better send me a care package.
That would be
care package next time.
Yeah?
Yeah. And then maybe.
All right.
Maybe I'll do it again.
Well, thank you all for joining me, and this has been Subject to Blackout. As always, you can find more at subjecttoblackout.com. You can also go over there and find links to all of our socials, including Instagram, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Patreon. You can email me at timo@subjecttoblackout.com, and I will give you all of the personal information of all my guests tonight at the drop of a hat. I want to thank you all again for joining me. I think this was tremendous, and I can't wait to talk to you guys again.
Appreciate it, Timo.
Love it, Timo.
Later, guys.
Godspeed, Timo.
Good night.